So, it's been a while since my last video, but I decided I'm gonna do, a video where I show my movie collection, because I have quite a few movies now. I don't have as many as most people do, probably, but I still have quite a lot, and I'm gonna get more sometime, because I do like a lot of movies, and I have a list of movies that I'm gonna get sometime, that I plan to get, but I'm just gonna show the ones I have. First off, I'm starting off with, like, these aren't gonna be in the order I got them in, but I'm doing roughly, these first few are, like, some of the first ones I got. And this is, Gun Justice, which, primarily consists of episodes of The Lone Ranger. It has all the public domain Lone Ranger episodes on it. And the thing I really don't like about this is that instead of being like a normal case, it has, these paper cases that are really flimsy. And it has all the public domain Lone Ranger episodes, which there are 17. And then it also has a really old movie serial of... excuse me. It has a really old movie serial from 1938 of The Lone Ranger, which consists of 15 episodes, which is really old and all worn out and everything, but that's kind of interesting because that's really rare and hard to find, so that's really cool to have. And then it has a few episodes of some other shows, like the Cisco Kid and Gabby Hayes Show and Kit Carson, Roy Rogers, Annie Oakley, Judge Roy Bean, Cowboy G-Man. But I have it mainly for the Lone Ranger. Alright. And then I have this series, I think it's from the early 90s or mid-90s, and it's called White Fang. And it's loosely based off of the book, but really only the first episode really resembles the book at all. It doesn't really have anything about a gold rush or anything. So it loosely adapts, like, the events from, like, the last maybe 5 or 10 chapters of the original book. It's 25 episodes because it ran one season. There's rumors online of a 26th episode, and that actually has made it to IMDb and everything, but I'm inclined to believe that that's just false information, because that has happened with a few shows sometimes. I don't think there is an episode 26. I really don't think there is. I heard something similar happen to, like, Street Sharks at one point, but... Anyway. Next I have Sherlock Holmes, and these are the ones with, Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law playing Holmes and Watson. And I like these films. They're not great. Well, I would say they're great, but they're not the best films ever. It has Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes: The Game of Shadows. I heard they're making a third one, so that will be kind of interesting to see when that movie comes out. And then I can buy that one and complete the collection once that happens. Next, I've got the Peanuts movie. And the Peanuts movie, I really liked the Charlie Brown cartoons when I was a kid. And, all those. And I was kind of a little bit skeptical about this movie at first because, you know how movies are these days. But they actually did a good job with it. It actually felt like a Peanuts cartoon. And I consider it pretty much an absolutely perfect movie. They even managed to get the CGI to kind of somewhat resemble traditional animation. It's really good. And then, of course, and you guys probably know I have this movie because of some of the videos on my channel, but The Wizard of Oz. The classic 1939 film. And of course, I'm not as big a fan of this movie as most people are because, you know, a lot of people know I'm a fan of the, like, this is my Wizard of Oz right here. This is Wizard of Oz for me, the book. Nothing will beat that for me. But the movie isn't bad by any means. I still really enjoy watching it. Not as good as the book, of course, but still good. And then I have Charlotte's Web. And this is the live action one from 2005. I don't have the one from the 70s, like the animated version. I'd like to get that one of these days, but I like the live action version better anyway. So that's what I have right now. I did watch the animated one a lot as a kid before this one came out, but this one has pretty much taken the place of that version because I just prefer this version. I really like this movie. It's cute with, like, the pig is cute. Everything. And then I have Back to the Future. This is a great movie. If you haven't seen this movie, then watch it right now. Like, find a copy of it and watch it, because it is a great time travel movie. It's fun, it's funny, it's epic, it's just nearly perfect. It's a great movie. Watch this sometime. The first one especially, because the sequels aren't as good, but the first one is a classic. Anybody who hasn't seen this film has got to see it at least once. Then I have Adventures in Babysitting, the original from 1987. Really my only problem with this is that since it's a really early, it's one of the first DVDs ever made, I believe. Because I believe this DVD was printed in the early 2000s. I can't quite see. Yeah, I don't know. But it's a really early done DVD. So the widescreen is non-anamorphic. So if you play this on a widescreen TV, there will be black bars on all four sides of the screen. It'll be, like, framed and everything. That's not such a big deal because the TV in my room is classic style TV with, like, the square screen. So it's going to have the black bars on top and bottom for any widescreen movie. Not the frame at all, but it would be nice to have an anamorphic transfer of the movie. I'd like to get the remake someday, like the 2016 remake, because I really liked that too, but I kind of like this one better. You can't beat the classics in most cases. Then I have, Willy Wonka. I've always had mixed feelings about this movie because, of course, I've read the book. And they did change a lot of things, and I know that happens with a lot of movies. So I don't really think it's a great movie. I think it's a good movie, but not great. And I'd like to get the other one, the one with Johnny Depp, because even though that's not exactly like the book either, it does do a lot of things closer to how they were in the book. I'd like to put that alongside this one, even though this is obviously the classic version right here. I mean, it's Gene Wilder, of course, and it's not a bad movie by any means. It's actually quite good. Then I have the Karate Kid collection. It has the original movie right there. And then it has the second one. and the third one, and it has the remake from 2010. They had Jackie Chan. What I really don't like about this is the way the case is set up, because it has them stacked on top of each other, and that can be kind of bad for the discs, but whatever. It doesn't have the fourth one, the girl Karate Kid, but I like to pretend that one doesn't exist anyway, so it doesn't really matter much. Another thing, and this is about the movies themselves, I personally probably would have had the Karate Kid Part 3 come before Part 2, chronologically, even though that's not the way the movies are made. Because I think, character-wise, it makes more sense for the events of Part 3 to happen before the events of Part 2, even though that's obviously not how it happens. It would have been a bit more interesting that way, but whatever. Anyway, next, I have The Outsiders. And this is a Blu-ray and a DVD. I usually try to get DVDs of stuff because DVD, I don't really have a Blu-ray player. But this has the DVD and the Blu-ray, and this is the extended edition, which I think is vastly superior to the theatrical. Some of the music choices, because they actually replaced most of the score with a new score, and the new score isn't really that great. I kind of wish they would have kept the old score. But the pacing of this movie, I will say the theatrical did have a better pace, but this is one of the rare cases where that's actually kind of a bad thing. Because I actually think the additional scenes actually improve the story. If you haven't seen the extended edition, I suggest you give it a watch. And if I had to recommend only one version of the film, I'd recommend the extended. That's the definitive version of the film for me. I do not like the new score. I wish they would have kept the old one, but that's a small price to pay, in my opinion. Next, I have the movie Bumblebee, and this is one I got recently. I used to watch the Transformers Prime TV show when I was a teenager, and that's pretty much the Transformers. This has one of those annoying slip covers, but that's okay. I don't hate them all that much. I think they're actually kind of cool. This is the Blu-ray and the DVD, of course. Other than the first one, I don't really like the Michael Bay Transformers films because other than the first one, and even the first one isn't that great, because they just don't focus enough on character. They have way too much action, too little story. This comes with a comic book, by the way, which I haven't read yet, but it looks kind of cool. And then this is the movie, of course. It's the DVD and the Blu-ray. But I really like Bumblebee. They did a good job on this one. This is a prequel to the Michael Bay films. It happens before them. But you can pretty much just watch it and not have to watch any of the other movies. And I think it's hundreds of times better than any of Michael Bay's films were. It's a great film. Even if it wasn't a Transformers film, like even if I wasn't a Transformers fan or anything, I'd probably still really like this movie because it has some great character moments. It's kind of got like a storyline similar to like E.T. or something like that. Only, I'm not really a big fan of E.T., but I think this film actually does it way better than E.T. did, so I kind of consider, like, E.T. done right. And plus, it takes place in the 80s, and it actually feels like an 80s film. I'm not sure why it's rated PG-13, because it's not really all that violent. I would have personally rated it PG, but it's a great film. I highly recommend this one. I gotta put this back a second. Hold on. Sorry, you're seeing black a minute because I had to set my camera down. Get that. Next, I have the Stuart Little movies, Stuart Little and Stuart Little 2. And these are movies I watched a lot when I was a kid. Stuart Little. I don't know why they had to add like 1 or 2 swear words to each movie to get it a PG rating. That's Sony for you. But other than that, these are nice, family-friendly movies. They're not perfect by any means. They have plenty of cheesy moments. And this is one of those rare occasions where the sequel is actually better than the original. Trust me on that. I love these movies, especially the second one. The second one is one of my favorite movies. And there's also a third movie, but I don't have that one. And it's not a good movie. The third one is so terrible, I don't even like to acknowledge that it exists, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Next, I have this. And this is Matilda, Madeline, and Annie in a 3-pack of movies. These are 3 of my favorite movies, even though this version of Annie isn't even really that great. I know this is the classic version, but it's not really that great. I think it kind of fails when it's trying to, character development-wise and everything, it kind of fails. And the actress playing Annie is really, really annoying in this one, but it's not a bad movie. It's just probably the weakest of the movie versions they've made. And, Madeline is a nice kids movie that I watched when I was a kid. I like that movie. And then, of course, Matilda's a classic. Right here. I like the way they did it in this one, where they don't have that annoying flap thing. They just have it on 2 separate sides. So that it's not like this thing that feels like it's going to break right off. And, one problem is, even though Madeline has the widescreen, Annie and Matilda are in full screen for some reason. I don't know why they did it that way. That's really weird. But once again, that's Sony for you. Sony hasn't been, like, good since I don't know how long. The DUFF. I like this movie. I saw this movie a few years ago, and I thought it was really funny, and it's got a lot to like about it. It's not probably the best movie because it's got some really crude stuff in it, but it's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's really kind of interesting. I like this one. Not great, but really, really good. The DUFF. Alright. Then I have the Lord of the Rings. These are the theatrical versions, and I might get the extended editions one of these days, but I actually kind of think the theatrical versions are better paced, so this is all 3 films. And it has this annoying flap thing so that it can hold all the discs in, which I really don't like. My brother actually got this for me for my birthday a few months ago, which was nice. But I don't know why they make the cases that way. That's really, really annoying. And then I have the Hobbit Trilogy, and this is actually the extended edition. And I actually think the extended editions are better than the theatricals, because there's a lot of scenes that I think should have been in the movies, even though the movies aren't that great, because they did kind of undermine the story by adding a bunch of stuff that wasn't in the book. And by the way, this is the book. But I actually like the Hobbit movies, and I actually do find them more fun to watch than the Lord of the Rings, even if they aren't necessarily better than the Lord of the Rings movies. I still find them more fun to watch. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but even though they're technically not better than the Lord of the Rings movies, because the Lord of the Rings movies are technically better, I find the Hobbit more fun. Like, I like these movies. I actually saw the movies in theaters. Not the extended editions, of course, But I saw the theatrical versions in the theaters. They were fun to watch. And this is the second one. Probably the best one of the series. Even though they did introduce a lot of stuff into this film that kind of bogged things down. Desolation of Smaug. I like his eye right there. And of course, Smaug is just cool the way they designed him with Benedict Cumberbatch doing his voice. That is supposed to say Hervold was Thrain, King Under the Mountain. I don't know why they changed that in the movie. Even in the Lord of the Rings, if you actually watch the Lord of the Rings movies and they show that map briefly, it does say Thrain there instead of Thror. So I don't know why they couldn't stay consistent. That's another problem with the Hobbit movies, but what are you going to do about it, I guess? And then, the last one, the Battle of the Five Armies. Which, for some reason, the MPAA felt the need to give that an R rating for some violence, even though I don't really even think it's all that violent. I would have kept it at a PG-13 rating. It's a fun movie. Maybe they focused a little bit too much on the battle stuff. It goes on for a bit too long. A lot of it is based off of like 5 pages of the book, literally. But it's still a fun movie to watch. A really fun movie. I recommend The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings to people that like those kinds of movies. Then I have, we're getting into these movies now, another stack of movies. I have Carrie. And Carrie is a movie that I saw at college, a little more than a year ago. And it's really strange, because this isn't really the kind of movie I would normally like, but I just really ended up enjoying this movie, and I had to get my own copy of it. It's a nice, very, very thought-provoking movie about a girl from an abusive home who gets bullied. And don't judge it by its cover, because I think they kind of overemphasized the horror and thriller elements a little bit, because I don't really think of this as much as a horror or thriller movie, so much as a tragedy. But, because most of that stuff actually happens near the end. Like, I personally wouldn't have had any of this kind of stuff on the cover where it shows her with the blood and everything, even on the DVD itself, because I actually consider that a spoiler. I think that would have been a nice surprise to the audience later in the movie. But that's Hollywood for you. Next I have Batman Begins. And, I'm not a big fan of the Nolan Batman films, the Christian Bale or whatever his name is. But, I really enjoyed the first one. I still think the first one is the best of the series. And I'd like to get the older Batman movies, like the Adam West ones and the Michael Keaton ones sometime. Even the one with George Clooney, because I actually sort of like that one, even though I know it's kind of dumb. But Batman Begins is a pretty fun movie, even if it is overly long. 140 minutes. And then I got SpiderMan. And SpiderMan, this is the classic Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. I still think this one and the second one, by the way, I have the second one too, I'll show you in a second. The first one and the second one are still the best Spider-Man movies, in my opinion. And I want to get the third one sometime, but I don't have that one yet. It's fun movies. And then I have The Spectacular Spider-Man, which is a TV series. This has those annoying flap things as well. But it ran for only 26 episodes and then got canceled, even though pretty much everybody liked it. Because there was a problem with the rights. You could probably blame Sony for that. But it's probably the greatest version of Spider-Man of all time, this TV series. Probably even better than the original comics, I think. I'd give that a watch sometime if you ever get a hold of it. I think it might even be on some streaming services if you look. And then last but not least, Spider-Man Homecoming, which is a Blu-ray and a DVD. Right here. And I have a lot of other movies. I have some Christmas movies over there, but I'm going to save those for Christmas. So I'll see you next time.